The following program does not offer personal medical advice. Please consult your doctor before using any treatment or product we cover. Welcome to Go to Health Media with your host, Jonathan Marks. We provide a welcoming environment where experts educate you on important health topics, answer your questions, and provide information from which you can benefit in consultation with your doctor. You can visit and subscribe to the show at gotohealthmedia.com. And now, here is Jonathan Marks. Hey everybody, this is Jonathan Marks with Go to Health, and welcome back to the show. We're so excited to have you here. You know, every once in a while, we invite a health expert on the show who's also engaged in the arts. While medical science is the language of facts, research, data, diagnosis, and treatment, the arts is the language of the heart. And when we combine the language of medicine with the language of art, we round out our total human experience to combine factual knowledge with emotional, social, and spiritual insight. We have the pleasure today of speaking with a practicing physician who expresses herself in the language of poetry. She has just published a book of poems titled A Doctor Only Pretends, Poems About Illness, Death, and In Between. Abby Caplin, MD, is a physician and practices mind-body medicine in San Francisco, California. In addition to being a doctor, she's also a poet who captures what is going on inside the body and combines it with extraordinary insight into what is also going on inside the soul. She's been a finalist for the Rash Award in Poetry, the Anna Davidson Rosenberg Poetry Award, a semi-finalist for the Willow Run Poetry Book Award, and an award recipient of the San Francisco Poets 11, and a nominee for Best New Poets, Best of the Net, and the Pushcart Prize, the Best of Small Press, and the most honored literary project in America. Abby also lives with a chronic health condition, which informs her work as both a physician, patient, and poet. So welcome to the show, Abby. How are you today?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me.
It's a pleasure. You know, I thought we could start off the show with one of your poems, which I'd like you to read first, and then we'll discuss. The poem from the collection, A Doctor Only Pretends, is called Kuan Yin. So why don't you read that for us, Abby?
Sure. Kuan Yin. A doctor only pretends to understand the soul's transmissions through the stethoscope, the placement of bell and drum on bare chest, simple human breath, commingling with clicks of worry, raspings of self-reproach, the unpredictable beat of chronic confusion. The details don't matter when loneliness is undone. And the siren I hear through the window reminds me of that normal day when illness held me upside down by my feet and slapped my behind until bright pennies of pain emptied me. Misery comes cheap, and to survive, you must study those bangs of false belief about who you are that blind your third eye. Make your hard pilgrimage from the realm of nightmare into the space of a quiet room, bird calls and dogs barking in the distance. Everyone who lives long enough slips into the pit, even my neighbor, who screwed up his face when I said Crohn's disease, later stroked out. And he did not merit my story, how I awoke from my dying to another existence, where water and sand cradled my feet, the gulls cried to give comfort, and I sang the sea's Om.
Thank you. There's so many images that come up in that. What prompted, what inspired this poem?
Well, I was sitting in a room and in my house, and where I had, it was after the pandemic started, and I had moved my office back home. And there was a Kuan Yin statue that I had brought from my office.
Hmm.
Yeah, and that's what started it. Just looking at that Kuan Yin, the Chinese goddess of compassion,
Hmm.
remembering what brought me to my work.
And tell us a little bit about that story. What did bring you to your work?
Well, when I was in my early 30s, I was finishing up my pediatric residency, and I got quite sick, and it took several years to finally be diagnosed with Crohn's disease,
Hmm.
which is an autoimmune disease that affects the intestine as well as other parts of the body. And at that point, I really had to get reoriented. And I found, of course, a really good counselor to help me
Hmm.
at that time. And I started to explore other ways of healing and guided imagery and yoga. And it's just been a journey since then.
So you really take a multimodal approach to healing. So it's not just conventional Western medicine, but it also sounds like you've delved into Eastern medicine and other meditative practices.
Over the years, yes, over the years. And I actually decided I wanted to become a counselor and help other people
Hmm.
um, with chronic illness, autoimmune disease in particular. That's where the body sets up an inflammatory condition and you get things like Crohn's disease. I got a master's in counseling psychology uh, and then opened my practice.
Nice. And so you work with clients, I guess, remotely, who have chronic disease,
Yes,
right?
yes.
And so you basically do counseling and coaching.
Right. And there are different modalities that I've used and for the past 10 years I've been using a certain modality called voice dialogue, but that's a whole other topic of conversation.
Right. So, Abby, one of the things I first noticed in your poem that you just read was listening through the stethoscope. And I know that you, again, you're bridging the world of medical science, but also expressive arts. Tell us the kind of experience you've had when you listen through a stethoscope as you're with a patient.
So when I listen to a patient's chest or I put the stethoscope on, there's kind of a ritual involved and it feels bigger than just my listening for pathology and the patient being quiet. There's kind of a connection, a heart connection. And what happens and what I describe in the poem is that loneliness is undone. I think the hardest thing of
Mm.
having a chronic illness is that you're often alone in the experience because no one else can have the same experience.
Mhm.
And that's really what happens when there's that connection like that, that it doesn't matter the pathology if you hear anything that's wrong. I mean, yes, but it's a connection where loneliness is undone.
Mm. Mhm.
And
Even in those short few moments of the visit, you're
yeah,
really able to be together.
yeah, yeah. And when I get my heart listened to, I feel like it's the same thing. I feel like somebody's there putting, connecting to my heart and being there with me,
Hmm.
even if it's just for those few moments.
Hmm. That's beautiful. That's really beautiful. And there's also a sense of when there's this, let's say, upset or anxiety or whatever you want to call it about having a disease, that it's still daily life that continues.
Hmm.
And I got that sense from the poem as well, that even as you're dealing with a disease, life is still going on and you are still living in this world and it's a daily occurrence. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, it's about finding those spaces, like between the dogs barking and, you know, I forgot what I have here, bird calls, there's that moment of being quiet and being part of the world and feeling connected to something larger than yourself.
Mm.
That's also very healing.
Hmm. Do you find that patients can have that perspective even during the middle of chronic disease?
I think that's the work. That's
Mm.
the work, is being with a patient or client, I call my
Hmm.
clients,
Hmm.
being with them and exploring what matters to them and how they can uh, connect to something larger than themselves. They need to find that for themselves. Each person does.
Mm.
And they're just different levels of being with someone who's exploring that.
Hmm. And do you find that a lot of people can find that bigger sense of the world or bigger sense of what part they play, or that they can come up out of their disease and out of their discomfort to realize a bigger perspective?
Yes, very often. Yeah.
Mm.
And being in that mode allows the body to rest, actually,
Mm.
and
Mm.
and feel a sense of well-being, of calm, and can allow, I won't say it always, but it can allow the body to have um, a way to respond in a way that's healing.
Mm. So it's really a sense of a relaxation coming up out of yourself, realizing that there's a bigger world out there that you're part of.
Right, right. And for every person, that journey's different.
Mm-hmm. And I would also think having that perspective helps in their healing, as you just mentioned.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, and that's what at the end of the poem, I was just, when I was, 30 years ago or whatever, more than 30 years, kind of finding my place in all of this. And it shifts over the years, it's shifted.
Mm-hmm.
But at that time, just walking on a San Francisco beach and hearing the gulls and just being away from everything else but the world around me
Mm-hmm.
at that moment.
Would you read another poem for us, Abby? And this is about a different kind of health challenge. It's the one that I love is Ways to Know Your Father Has Alzheimer's. Can you
Okay.
share that with us?
Oh, I'd be happy to. Yes, so this is about my father.
Mm.
Ways to know your father has Alzheimer's. When he starts giving your mother the wrong pills, and after she dies, not from the pills but cancer, when he adopts a man living on the streets and meets him at midnight to help him start a sewing business.
Mm.
When 6 months later he tells you he's given this man at least $30,000, and to a woman he met in a Walmart parking lot, over $80,000, who says she'll kiss him after they marry. When he calls to tell you his cat has been missing for 3 weeks, the neighbors complaining about streets littered with lost cat signs, later learning he unloosed reams of them onto their driveways, and you enter his house, see the stiff carcass by the heating vent,
Mm.
and you have to air out the living room. When he tells you he loves eating canned olives for dinner and recommends you try it. When he takes your daughter to the Children's Museum but misses the exit, ends up on the Golden Gate Bridge, and makes a U-turn in the middle. When he talks his way out of a ticket and still has his driver's license despite the psychiatrist's report. When you've moved him to assisted living and you drop nail clippers into your pocket before each visit. When on President's Day he doesn't recognize the cartoon drawing of Abraham Lincoln in the dining room display. When you watch an attendant tie a blue bib around his neck at the table and he's not embarrassed. When you are together, looking through an art book in the rec room, and you turn the page to a painting by Rembrandt, Christ on the cross, and your father, once a respected university professor, says, oh my gosh, what happened to him?
Wow. I was with you on every one of those images. This is an experience you went through. These were all true
All true.
events.
Yeah, all true.
Wow.
Yeah, and only a small portion.
Yes, I'm sure there were many more. Right. Oh,
Yeah, yeah.
that's so difficult. So tell us, what are the feelings that come up for you, as you kind of catalog these different instances? Is it a feeling of helplessness? Is it what do you feel?
I think I feel, first of all, compassion for myself for having lived through that. And I
Mm,
think that the poem honors more my experience of all the stress that I went through,
right.
trying to support him and do what was right, and kind of getting derailed periodically.
Hmm.
Society, by the people who didn't take away his driver's license. It's a struggle that people go through,
Yeah.
and also the people who want to defraud the elderly,
Mm,
you know, all of
hmm.
that. So that's what I feel when I read this. I'm kind of honoring my experience.
Yes. Yes. And I know, I remember when my parents passed, my sister and I spoke about it, and she got the insight from another physician that even when your parents going through something difficult and there's really nothing you can do, that really our role is to be a witness to what's happening for them and for you, that you're really, as you said before, you're cutting through the loneliness there and just being with somebody and being a witness for what they're experiencing.
Yeah, yeah, that's so beautifully said. Yeah.
Good. So we're talking with Abby Caplin, MD. She's a physician and poet, and we will be back with some more poems from Abby in just a few minutes after these messages. Stay with us. We'll be right back. You are listening to Go to Health Media. To reach Jonathan Marks or his guest expert, you may send an email to jonathanmarks@gotohealthmedia.com. You may also visit and subscribe to the website and show at gotohealthmedia.com. And now, back to this week's show. Okay, welcome back to the show. This is Jonathan Marks with Go to Health, and we're talking today with Abby Caplin, MD, who's a physician and practices mind-body medicine in San Francisco, California, and is also an award-winning poet. So, Abby, share with us some of the successful ways in which some of your clients have coped with chronic disease, which may be very challenging to have physically, but how do they get past this and live through a day? What are some of the examples of what you've seen?
I've seen people cope, and coping by using, for example, for pain, using guided imagery on a regular basis. And that means using your imagination to put yourself into a space that's safe, that's free of pain, and using it in different ways.
Mm-hmm.
And also with just finding the passion that ignites each person. What is that passion? A lot of people don't know what that is. So they might find that doing some kind of Chinese movement meditation like Qigong
Mm-hmm.
is very helpful. Um, Painting, I have a client that goes for painting classes,
Mm-hmm.
and of course writing. I used to lead a mind body health writing class,
Mm.
the bookstore around the corner, and uh, and having people just be given prompts, write, and then share their experiences um, from the writing.
So all those kind of remind me that it's really a way to take yourself away from the physical, the focus on the physical part
Mhm.
of the body that may be hurting or ailing or not working right, but really going off more into a using your mind and creativity to be more creative.
Right. And the word coping is not my favorite word,
Okay.
because I consider this, sometimes, you'll hear people say, if I hadn't gotten that illness, I wouldn't have done this. And so it
Hmm.
really is about finding what is the gift, even
Hmm.
though it's not one of your choosing. What that process of finding the gift is what matters.
Hmm.
And it's more about self-growth and what you're learning and all the ways that people learn about themselves, about the world, about what their contribution really is.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, if I hadn't gotten Crohn's disease, I don't know that I would have ever turned to writing,
Hmm.
and I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you.
Hmm. So what I'm hearing is there's a blessing uh, in disease or chronic conditions, but you have to find it.
Right, right. And that's something that, the Rachel Naomi Remen, who wrote Kitchen Table Wisdom and
Hmm.
My Grandfather's Blessings, she talks about that a lot, finding the blessing
Hmm.
in things.
Very cool.
Hmm.
Wonderful. Would you read us another poem?
Hmm.
Let's see. There's one that you've called Splinted, which I think is about osteoarthritis.
Yes, and this is a recent poem because the past year, in 2021, I had two surgeries
Oh,
on my um, toes,
hmm.
and I had to be non-weight bearing for 6 weeks each time.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, so health issues are ongoing, and so there's always a learning. Splinted. Quads shivering, bearing the weight of non-weight bearing, reaching for the tossed rock of osteoarthritis on a single leg like a schoolgirl. The only muscles alive, the crying ones on your face. No one said it would be a straight line of 3 squares on the blacktop to hopscotch forward and back these 6 weeks. No one warned you'd be cast into a dark hovel, left foot bound, hot sweat between your toes, the pincer's pinch of a screwed joint.
Hmm.
In this moment of your body's reconstruction, it doesn't matter that you haven't bathed, that the curtains you bought last week remind you now of your ancient aunt's apartment when you were a child, her rotting breath as she held your face to better see you through her cataracts. But each day, small gratitudes seep into this pan of pain, bubble and dance like water landing on hot oil. Striped dahlias in blue glass, the friend who checks in every afternoon, the husband who makes the bed, brings you breakfast, holds you as you lean back on the good foot, bending your knee to slither to the carpet. After 2 weeks, you can scooch downstairs, mount your green knee scooter to careen through the dining room where you are 7 again, and your father is running to catch up with you on your Schwinn, pink and white ribbons flowing from the handles, his cheers echoing along the hardwood floors.
Wow. Every one of these evokes so many images. It's really amazing. Yeah, so the insight that I'm having from this is that, when you have some kind of an illness or surgery or whatever, it really just takes over your current life for the moment while you heal. And that you really have to take that time to heal and rest. But there are so many images that I hear going through your life, and I can imagine going through my mind because I've been bedridden at different points in my life, that it really helps give you perspective on your life and where you're going to go next.
Yeah, definitely. And perspective, and also a new respect for the body. That I had to maneuver on one foot for 6 weeks,
Mm.
um, and and work muscles I had never worked before. Some
Yes, yes.
yeah, and every movement I had to think about. And I don't usually think about that, normally as we go through the day, we just count on our arms moving and our legs moving, and but to think about every movement I had to make.
Hmm.
And a lot of people have to do that all the
Hmm.
time, and it doesn't, and they're not better after 6 weeks. They can't.
Right. And how is it different for you with all your medical knowledge when you are thinking about all these movements? Do you have does it give you a special insight? Does it make you more humble? Does it, what's the combination here between your training and your experience?
Well, I have to say, I'm just Abby Caplin, and I'm
Okay.
experiencing that at that moment, and I'm trying to help myself and trying to find a way to not get back, but trying to find a way to find the gift. And each,
Hmm.
and of course, when you're in pain, it's really hard to find the gift.
Hmm.
And you can't.
Right.
Oftentimes, some people are amazing. I have a client who is in chronic pain, severe pain all the time for years, and she does find the gift.
Mm.
And that's to me is amazing.
And when you talk about finding the gift, it's not like one gift. It's really each person's individual experience and research and searching.
Exactly, exactly.
Can you
Yeah.
share one way in which she found a gift through the pain?
Yes, because well, she's also a writer, and for her that's key. And
Hmm.
uh, and I don't want to give any more information, just
Sure.
keep it confidential. But yes, in many ways, she finds community. She finds individuals to connect with, and she loves her backyard and her garden.
Hmm.
She does that.
Hmm.
It's a constant finding and experiencing of the gifts.
Good. So you're bringing up this again, not being alone, isolated, but really being in community, having people care for you, you caring for them. It's really maintained, despite the pain, which can be so isolating,
Mhm.
that you're still being able to be social in some way.
Right, right. There's a lot that's put on patients with chronic illness by society, and
Hmm.
that has to be attended to as well.
Say a little bit more about that.
Well, I think even in Kuan Yin, where I tell this guy on the street, this neighbor, what I'm dealing with, and that I'm also going to lead a group in mind body health writing in a few moments.
Uh-huh.
He just screws up his face and ew, you know, and
Hmm.
that it can't happen to him, right? It couldn't happen to him,
Right.
but of course it does.
Yeah.
But it's about society conquering, this is our John Wayne kind of mentality that we get through it, that we cure ourselves, we go back to the way things were.
Hmm.
And that's not the way it really works.
Can you describe an example of how it does work so that people get a better understanding?
Yeah, that's where you don't run away from your experience or berate yourself or come down on yourself for not getting better.
Hmm.
um, which can happen when patients go to the doctor
Hmm.
and the doctors, worked it and really worked hard to figure out what's wrong and can't find it, and then the patient feels that they're to blame. So that needs to be worked through, and that's what I help people with.
Got it. So what you're really highlighting is not only you experiencing this whole thing, it's how the rest of the world reacts to you.
Yeah.
Like if I'm just thinking, if you have cancer, I remember when my father did have cancer, he was very concerned about sharing it with anybody because he was concerned about people's judgments about what he was able or not able to do, and he was perfectly able to continue everything, but there was a lot of concern about what everybody else thought.
Right, right. And for good reason.
Mm-hmm.
So how does a person who has chronic illness or cancer navigate the world so that they retain their whole sense of wholeness? Everyone's whole, but how do you retain that sense of your own sense of self?
So, Abby, would you read another poem for us? And the one that I also like is called Regret. Can you tell us what regret is about before you read it?
Yeah, regret is about a physician who makes a medical error that costs someone's life,
Mm.
someone their life. Regret. Sometimes coastal fog is too bright, a jarring inferno of white fluorescence, like a hospital morgue at midnight, amplified in the polish of stainless steel. I have lived as a shore wolf baying in the dusk at the cirrus shrouds of heaven. With the wrong call, I once sent a child to the angels, my best intentions wrapped in a Macintosh blade and an endotracheal tube. Some called it medicine. I heard his mother weeping in the hallway, and the boy's quiet chest grew a worm in my nightmares. A mask of my mother hangs in the closet, and knowing my mother, she is ashamed that I did not live up to her potential. Listen, beyond her fading, reproving voice, past the angel still warm, the clock is ticking, and I am a fly, insisting itself against a damp bay window where mold sprouts in the pale afternoon, and another straggling day is swept from the room.
Your poetry evokes such emotion. It's so beautiful. It really just shares the humanity of healthcare professionals. I mean, you go to see your doctor and you view them as the expert who's going to help you, but they're really just people like the rest of us. And they have their successes and failures too. And it must be so difficult as a physician when you have an error like that costs a life. I don't know how much that ends careers, but it's something certainly you have to go through, and I guess come out of that pain as well to
Mm-hmm.
find something bigger and a bigger purpose about what you're doing, and that you're not perfect.
Yeah, yeah. And the only people who can really help you are other physicians, who've been through the same thing.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. Well, we are talking with Abby Caplin, MD. She's a poet. She practices in San Francisco, and she's just a wonderful poet. As you can see, she's won a number of awards. We're going to share more with you after this break, and we'll tell you where you can learn more about Abby, her websites, and where you can buy her book. And we will be back right after these messages, so stay with us.
You are listening to Go to Health Radio. To reach Jonathan Marks or his guest expert on the live program, call in to 1-866-472-5788. That's 1-866-472-5788. You may also send an email to jonathanmarks@gotohealthmedia.com. Now, back to this week's show.
Okay, we're back for our third segment with Dr. Abby Caplin, MD. This is Jonathan Marks with Go to Health, and Abby is both a physician and a poet. And as you can hear from the poem she read, she's incredibly sensitive and really is very, very open to what's going on, both emotionally, socially, spiritually, when she works with patients. And this is a lot of the kind of work she does. And I want to share with you, before she reads her last poem for our session today, I want to share with you her website. Her poetry website is abbycaplin.com, and that's ABBYCAPLIN, abbycaplin.com. That's her poetry website. And on that website, you can buy her book that she's reading from, which is called A Doctor Only Pretends. If for some reason you can't get there, just go to Amazon and you can look up Abby Caplin, Abbycaplin, and you can look up the book called A Doctor Only Pretends. It's a really wonderful collection of poems with the insight of both, a physician, a patient, and then just a poet. There's just an amazing, incredible combination of perspectives in this book. Abby also has her physician website, which is abbycaplinmd.com. She does work with patients remotely, but according to her licensure, she works with patients only in California. So if you live in California and would like to find out more about her, you can go to abbycaplinmd.com. So Abby, if you could read your last poem for our show today, and this is one of my favorites. They're all wonderful, but this is a kind of a funny one. It's called Ode to Health Nuts. And tell us a little bit about what inspired that poem.
Oh gosh, my father was always a health nut.
Uh-huh.
He was recommending to everyone vitamin C and shark cartilage, and he was one of the early joggers in the 1960s when that whole thing started. And sometimes it drove people crazy, but this is an ode to him.
Okay.
Ode to Health Nuts for Sam. You plastered shaving cuts, carbuncles, and hernia scars with vitamin E. Tore off hunks of aloe, sucked the juice until your intestines spoke Spanish. Your fridges sprouted stainless steel bowls of bubbling sour yogurt and sauerkraut. You ran circles around tracks, around your detractors, jump jacks with Jack LaLanne, binged on shark cartilage to avoid the big C, until the world had a shark shortage. But you swam your shark laps to keep moving, to keep living, and some of you even lived long enough to watch your minds erased. Today, I ponder my possible fate, dealt by online tarot decks of genetic spread, a major arcana of Alzheimer's and macular degeneration. My kitchen drawers bulge with magnesium, omega-3, probiotics, and vitamin D, laced with equal parts science and hope. All hail to you, our prototypes, archetypes, guinea pigs, and vanguards, on whose shoulders we bless our nutrient-rich kale smoothies, farm-to-table boulangeries, and locally roasted single-origin coffees. Farm to your mother, your mouth to me, cow to carnivore, to black bean soup, back to the woman in the paisley shirt and bell-bottoms, rolling up her sleeves, digging into her brown rice and tofu dinner.
That's a delight. That sounds like so many people I know. And I have to admit, there's a certain part of me that I can relate to that as well, having been a child of the 60s and all the, it's the 50th anniversary of Francis Moore Lapay's Diet for a Small Planet.
Oh, yeah.
And when that came out, that really changed the world in terms of people's perception of what was good and healthy to eat, and that we really had to really move away from meat because it was just so agriculturally intense to grow.
Mm-hmm.
Good.
Yeah.
Well, Abby, this has been just a wonderful session with you. I'm so glad that we've been together.
Thank you for having me. I really, it's been fun.
Good. Well, I wish you the best with not only your book, but with your future writing and with your future awards, because you're certainly getting a lot of awards. Again, we're talking with Dr. Abby Caplin. You can find her at abbycaplinmd.com. That's ABBYCAPLIN. abbycaplinmd.com is her physician website, and her poetry website is abbycaplin.com. She's a physician and practices mind-body medicine in San Francisco. And in addition to being a doctor, as you've heard through the show, she's also a poet who captures what's going on inside the body and combines it with extraordinary insight into what is going on inside the soul. And as you've also heard, she also has a chronic condition herself. So she has all three perspectives about being a doctor, a patient, and also a poet. Abby, thanks again for being with us today. You've really given us a gift. And I think if there's a message we want to take from this, it's that people who have had chronic illness, the way they deal with it is not only just by coping with it, but they're also learning where their gift is. What has this shown them about themselves, either in their, possibly in their ability to cope, in their strength, in their faith, whatever. But when you're challenged in this way, there are so many people who really find that they have other gifts to give to the world that takes away the focus on the deficiencies of the body.
Absolutely.
Thanks so much, Abby. It was great being with you. And we will see you all again next week. And as I always say at the end of every show, I wish for you to go to health. Take care. See you next week. Thank you for tuning in this week to Go to Health Media. Be sure to join Jonathan Marks and another health expert next time. You can also catch the program on your favorite podcast platform. Until our next show, be sure to visit us on the web at gotohealthmedia.com and elevate your life.